What'd you learn about your team during the bye, Matt?
Well, you just always kind of go back and look at all your tendencies. There's a lot to learn in terms of, especially situationally, what you're doing well, things you need to work on, and then just some tendencies you need to break, really in every phase of it. So I told you nothing.
I expected nothing. The one thing that Aaron did say at the game the other day is he always looks at the bye and where it falls. And I know you guys didn't want to play 12 games in a row, but is there any advantage to maybe you're going to be a little bit more fresh than everybody else because you had that rest this late?
Yeah, I think that's always the hope when you have such a late bye is, it breaks your season in terms of we got 5 games left in the regular season and then, hopefully some games after that. And but I hope it gets the guys kind of rejuvenated for the final push that we're about to encounter.
Do you think you'll get Bakhtiari, Jair, or Za'Darius back on the practice field this week?
Potentially. Certainly we hope so. Those guys, again, are doing everything in their power, but we'll see where we're at on Wednesday, and then obviously you guys will get updated then.
Is there going to be a similar ramp-up period for all 3 of those guys, even though they're all different injuries, just because of the amount of time that they've been out?
Yeah, it's hard to put them all in the same box. I think everybody's, they're all recovering from different things. So I trust that Flea and our medical staff have a great plan for these guys in terms of trying to incorporate them back into practice and then, just the whole ready-to-play process for each individual. But I wouldn't say we'd lump them all into the same kind of category.
Considering how good your corners have played without Jair, what would it mean to get him back?
Well, you can never have enough great players, and but our corners have done an outstanding job. I think, a lot of credit goes to each individual, but certainly, Jerry and Ryan Downard and Justin Hood do a great job with those guys and get them ready to play. But definitely have been really excited about guys like Rasul Douglas. I think Stokes continues to get better each and every week. Kevin King, when he is healthy and he's been in there, I think he's done a really nice job. And, he's another guy that we got to get back into the fold. And I also think guys like at the nickel position, Sully's done a great job as well.
You said those guys potentially could be back soon. We haven't talked to them, obviously. What's your sense of just their anxiousness, eagerness to get back out there?
Well, these guys love the game. They love being with their teammates. They love competing. So I know that they're itching to get back as soon as possible, and we just want to make sure that there's no extra risk for a setback or whatnot, and because obviously they're an important part of this team, and if we can get these guys back, there's certainly no guarantees with that, but we're hopeful that we can get each one of those guys back.
This is the first of your division rematches. What's the biggest challenge the second time around in a division game?
Yeah, I always think that, the second time you play somebody, it's challenging for both teams because you're going to rely on a lot that went right and or wrong the first time you played, and you're going to try to play that kind of chess game in terms of how are you going to adjust. And, every time you play the Chicago Bears, it's going to be a physical 4-quarter battle, and that was what it was like the first time around, and I would expect nothing different the second time around.
And I think it was A.J. Dillon who said, he and Aaron are like thunder and lightning because they can both be both of those. What do you think of just the way their skill sets have meshed together this year?
Yeah, I think they've been great. I mean, first of all, just individually, both those guys, they do such a great job in all 3 phases of being a running back in terms of the run game, in terms of pass protection, and then as a weapon out of the backfield. I think that's been pretty evident over the last 2 years or whatever that they've been performing at a high level, but they also complement each other. I think that either one of those guys could be a lead back in this league, and anytime you got 2 of them, that definitely is a luxury. So certainly, we need to lean on both of those guys, and every time we have, they've delivered for us.
Matt, do you have any sense of what the bye week meant for Aaron's toe?
Well, I know he was, getting treatment and doing everything he can to be 100%. I still think it's a process like anything, and we'll see where he's at this week. Hopefully we can get him out there at practice, but if not, we've got a lot of confidence in just his ability to go out there and play at a high level.
He said on the Pat McAfee show last week that it was possible to potentially get a surgery today or tomorrow. Is that happening?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't believe so. No.
Matt, how's Devondre Campbell doing, and do you expect him to miss any time?
Yeah, Dre's doing well. We're hopeful that we can get him back in this building, and we'll see where he's at when he can come back in on Friday, and provided he's asymptomatic, and which I believe he is. So he's doing again everything he can at home to be at his best, and we'll make sure that we incorporate him throughout our game plan meetings through Zoom, and he'll be a big part of it.
Matt, you mentioned obviously the final push that's ahead here. The Cardinals have 2 losses. You guys, the Buccaneers, have 3. Cowboys and Rams have 4. Just how competitive is this going to be here down the stretch for positioning?
That's the way it is every year. There's a bunch of teams right at the top, and the thing is, you can only control what you can control in terms of how you prepare each and every week. And we know that we're going to have a great NFC North opponent in the Chicago Bears, a team that's going to be very motivated. It's Sunday night football in Lambeau, and we know we'll get their best shot. And we got to make sure that we prepare the way that we're capable of, and bring our A game on Sunday night.
Do you scoreboard watch this time of year?
Not too much. I really think it is the focus on. I think if you start focusing on things outside of your control or outside of your football team, then you're not 100% focused on the challenges that lie ahead for your team. So I think we just got to take care of our business, and whatever happens, in those other games, that's the way it rolls. But, we got many tough challenges in front of us, starting with Chicago, and just got to make sure that we continually get better each and every week, prior to whatever lies at the end of this thing.
Was the bye solely focused on you guys, or did you take the time to get a jump on you guys? Obviously, Chicago was on TV yesterday, and so was Baltimore. Those are your next 2 games.
Yeah, I would say the primary focus is on yourself. But yeah, you're definitely taking notice when you're sitting there, watching the Bears game versus Arizona, and the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. You're always kind of taking in just observations as you're watching it. But as far as really dissecting it the way we do when we watch our coaches' copies, I would say it's at a totally different level.
Matt, how do you go about a week when you don't exactly know who's going to start under center for the opposing team?
Yeah, I think that's just a challenge that kind of presents itself from time to time. And, both of those guys, I think, are really high-quality quarterbacks. I think Andy's played in this league for a long time, so it's hard to really fool a guy like that. I think he's done some really nice things. And then Justin brings a different dynamic in terms of just his ability to create off schedule and make some plays, and certainly he did that the first time we played him. So, each guy has its own challenge that we have to account for.
All right, let's go to Zoom. Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, we have 3. We'll start with Steve McGarty.
You had said after the last game, you had talked about Rasul's competitiveness and how it kind of sticks out. Aside from what we see on Sundays, just what examples did you have that early on when you first got here, just whether in the meeting room, the practice field, or wherever, just how that competitiveness stuck out?
Well, yeah. First of all, you guys got to see how these DBs compete in the meeting room. It's quite an environment, especially on Saturdays. They have a quiz competition that they do between the corners and the safeties, and Jerry's created quite an environment there where it gets pretty animated. So that's one example. But just how he competes down and down out, how he challenges receivers. There's very rarely is there a lot of cushion between him and whoever he's guarding. I think he is always right there in position to make a play on the ball. And so I don't think that, I personally think that is something that, from an offensive perspective, when anytime you're getting challenged and you're not getting those freebies, so to speak, it makes your life much more difficult. And he is a resilient guy, because it doesn't matter if, every corner in this league is going to get beat from time to time, but he's so resilient in the fact that he doesn't change who he is and how he competes and how he challenges. And that's what I admire most about this guy, is just his ability. He is so even keel. He plays with an edge. He plays with some toughness, and you can see that in his ability to come up and make tackles and, like I said, compete for the ball in the air and make pass breakups. And he's made multiple big plays for us, and just has been a great mid-season pickup for us.
Silverstein?
Hey, Matt, just have one quickie and then a follow. Is Josh Myers possibly going to have that window open for him to start practicing?
I would not expect that, Tom. I would think that Josh needs a little bit more time.
Okay. And the other is, I think by the end of the season you'll have had like maybe 5 new games, and you had the Baltimore game flex. Is there any preference to playing at a certain time? Does it screw your schedule up to have all these night games and afternoon games? Is there a challenge to it?
I wouldn't say it screws it up, other than I know coaches a lot of times like those noon games, so you can get home and spend some time with your family. But I think our guys appreciate the opportunity to go out there and compete, and no matter if that's at noon at the 3:30 spot or the night game, they just relish that opportunity. And especially when you're playing in these primetime games like Sunday Night Football, I think it's a great opportunity for those guys to showcase what they're all about.